I'm going to call to order the Village of Belleville Board of Trustees for December 6th, 2024, and we will start with the pledge. I don't know who's leading it, so I will lead it, I guess. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What the hell are you doing?
Apologies.
Okay. If we could do roll
Yes, President Larson,
here.
Trustee Faden,
Here.
Michael Kraut,
Here.
Asmar,
Here.
Ward, here. Gary is online. Trustee Zever is online, and Zervis.
Here.
Did I get everybody?
I think so.
Okay, sorry.
Was the meeting
The
posted?
meeting was posted as required by law.
Next is public participation. Public participation allows citizens to be heard on any agenda and non-agenda item. The public may also comment during the public participation section of each item. The village board shall make no decisions or consideration of action of citizen comments for items not on the agenda except to refer the matter to the village administrator for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for board consideration at a later date. And as usual, if you have comments, please take the podium, state your name, address, and try to keep it to 3 minutes.
Yeah. I'd like to start it off by saying congratulations to Crystal. She graduated the academy on Friday and started her rotation on field training today.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, public comment?
Connie Erfer, Belleville. I have 3 questions. I would like to know if we get to be told now how much the yard paid for the depot. That's number 1. Number 2, I'd like to know why the yard got it over the Belleville group. I think we all have a right to know all this stuff. And number 3, why Cody was good enough to be interim chief, but not chief.
First 2 are just not ready, can't present yet.
Yeah, I would say we absolutely will share that, Connie. I think we're still in the negotiating stage, so it would be really inappropriate for us to try to divulge any information. I expect that we'll divulge information about both offers that were made on the depot when the time
I
comes.
think it maybe necessarily is in the next meeting.
Yeah, actually.
And as for Cody, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss personnel matters.
I don't know, I'm a taxpayer. He gets paid by my taxes. And I think I have a right to know.
Are generally not like public knowledge. The salary, the wage, all of that stuff is, but the kind of what happens is not.
Got a young man who was gonna buy a house around here, was going to retire here, has given a lot to Belleville, and he got crushed.
And they can't talk about it. You can ask him. He can say whatever he wants, but they can't talk about it.
Okay, I'll talk to him, because I've talked to him a little while ago, following
I'm
him
not
up.
trying to be mean. I'm just saying legality. They can't talk.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep asking these questions, so I'll give you an answer.
Anybody else have any public comments? On to the consent agenda. So all items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member requests it, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered the first item after the approval of the consent agenda. It's minutes for our December 2nd meeting, approval of, I'm going to murder her name, Marciel Santos Lang to the Economic Development and Tourism Committee, the Urban Forestry Grant Agreement, and the CDA Grant Application Resolution.
I so move for approval of all.
Second. By Maxine, seconded by Deb. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Village President's report. I don't have anything to add. Village staff reports.
The only thing that I have is if you, when residents are coming in to pay their taxes, there's the green and blue sheet on the window right there that kind of helps explain using a dollar, what percentage goes in the school district to us, to MATC, to Dane County, and then it tells them kind of what the mill rate has been for the last 10 years, and then kind of what percentages of the budget is going where. So hopefully they find that useful when they're coming in.
Ashley, I was wondering, I was surprised it wasn't in the mailer. A lot of us are still X-rowed in, so we wouldn't know about that. Will that be on the new website soon or anything like that?
That should be, yeah, once we get it on the website. The mailer went out before I thought about creating that.
Yeah, the mailer actually has to go out pretty early. Like on the mailer, I know it doesn't mention anything about the dog tags. I think it put like, TBD for the dog tag fees, because at that point, the counties hadn't even passed their budget or up their fee schedule yet. So, I mean, I think I have to turn that in early November for the counties for their printer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all tax bills are out and available online. We started receiving tax bills for both counties. So, yay, tax season.
Everything I have is in the memo, so.
Anything else from Andrea or Jim? Okay, next, old business, discuss and consider the draft bike, pedestrian and safe routes to school plan.
So this is a long time coming. There was a public meeting not that long ago, maybe a month or two ago, where we got some resident input. At that point, I told you they would be coming back to present to you guys, and today is that. So, Sam, Lance, all yours.
Thanks for having us. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I've been talking too much today. So I'm just going to give you a really quick rundown on where we're at with this project. We're happy to go into more detail, either if you guys have questions or separately. So far, what we've done is we've done a lot of data gathering. We've held meetings with village staff, with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation staff. We've held a public meeting, like Gabe mentioned, and we have been working on developing recommendations, which is what we're going to go over today. So what we did was we started with some initial kind of thoughts for recommendations, starting with some overall connectivity analysis of the village. We worked with staff input, and then we took those kind of thoughts to the public meeting to see what people thought. From there, we got some additions, we got some comments, we got some modifications. And so the draft recommendations that we have for you today incorporate all of that feedback so far. It also incorporates some of the information we received from the Department of Transportation. So in a second, what we've done is we've split up the recommendations into short-term, medium-term, long-term, and development. Villages have budgets. There's a limited number of funding opportunities, grants, and those kinds of things. So we tried to think things in a more, digestible. So for short-term improvements, a lot of that was based on feedback we got at the public meeting. We got a lot of feedback about having a safe crossing of 6992 to connect that north neighborhood to the school area, and then provide additional connections into the rest of kind of the sidewalk network. What we also found out when we met with DOT is that their project on the same sidewalk, they are looking to do a project on 6992 from just west of the intersection of Main and River. And then they'll go all the way to June Street, so just by the school. And they plan on that project being constructed in 2030. They're still in really preliminary stages, but that was the information that their group shared with us. And so that gives the village an opportunity to potentially add in some of the improvements into the DOT project, saving money. So it's not, kind of a standalone improvement, but the cost kind of gets shared with all of the other cost savings for a large project. And there's also some potential to apply for funding for that crossing itself of the road. So those were sort of the kind of short-term focuses that we have looked at, not only because of that public feedback, but also because of that opportunity to get some of the improvements rolled into the DOT project. We also have kind of medium-term improvements, like, for example, making some connections to the Patterson Trail. We also have some longer-term improvements, like a speed reduction study on River Street. That's something that we did talk to the DOT about a little bit, and they said they really wouldn't consider that until the conditions change on that road, but still a long-term goal and something just to kind of keep within the recommendations, kind of on the roadmap, as it were, of potential, ideas to look at. We also had several recommendations to just consider when new development comes through. So if there's a development, definitely having them look at particular paths, crossings, and other things, and have them incorporate that into their work, or have, a developer's agreement with the village to get some of that completed. So ultimately, what we're asking from you tonight is any feedback, between kind of the short, medium, long-term focus. We have the exhibits that we shared at the public meeting, which shows you a little bit about kind of what the general ideas of improvements are. And then kind of the proposed areas, proposed routes. We can leave these boards with you guys. And then ultimately, next steps would be to work on the draft plan. That will be, a whole manual full of information on background, data, everything else. But it will pull all of this together to give you guys kind of an idea of some recommendations. Nothing requires every one of these recommendations to be implemented. There might be other things that come up that you guys want to do, but at least there's a plan in place where, if you have an opportunity where you're going to be reconstructing a street, you could look at the plan and say, well, it looks like sidewalk is recommended here. It looks like a crossing. So we do have a little bit more time to kind of prepare the final version of this report, mostly because we were basing that final report deadline on when the Department of Transportation Transportation Alternative Program funding applications were due. Those were initially supposed to be due in January, and they pushed that back to April. So we've had a little bit more time just to make sure, we're doing all of our due diligence, making sure we're getting all of the input. And then everything will be buttoned up in time to use the data. We'll also be meeting with the Department of Transportation project manager for that highway project and talking about some of these initial concept ideas, at least just to get it on kind of their mind. But ultimately, we want to, see what you guys think, get your feedback, input, and just so you know, the board is also kind of looking at this data, all of these details. I think the meeting was earlier this afternoon, so we'll be pulling together.
And I do have, Jim isn't going to be able to make it today. He had an emergency that he's dealing with right now, but their 4 comments were, they're worried about the retention pond and the impact of trails when it's coming towards the school by the football field. We had proposed a trail, so that was just one of their comments. They like the site plans. They really like the church and Fairview sidewalk additions. And then
The retention, I'm sorry.
so there's a retention pond on the practice football field next to the real football field. And we have a trail
There's a retention pond.
yeah.
It's dry right now. It just,
You're talking about the fenced-in area, right?
right,
Okay,
it's got the culvert pipe kind of sticking
Yeah,
out of it.
okay.
They're worried about that, and then they really like the church and Fairview sidewalk additions. And then they need just a better understanding of how the funding is gonna be done for projects. These are our projects, not necessarily theirs. That was the only split issue. My comment that I guess I want from you guys too is, you see there's on the left poster board, there's a overpass and then there's a tunnel underpass. Is there a preference?
So just photo examples from other locations. Give you an idea of what.
Do you have a pamphlet or pages that explains everything?
I can actually give you the presentation we gave at the public meeting that would probably explain.
That would be great.
Perfect.
So I know that there was public comment at that meeting that I think there's, I don't want to say fear, but I think there's some concerns about having an underpass just because underpass feels like a tunnel and that's a place to
A little safety.
hide and safety concerns. But knowing where we're talking about, one, it's not very long, and two, I don't have any idea how we would find run up for an overpass.
That's the
We have
biggest.
space concerns relative to that, and I don't think a crosswalk is sufficient for as fast as traffic moves, as much traffic as comes through there. So I kind of land on an underpass just because that logically makes the most sense to me, but I also understand the sensitivity to it from comments that I've heard.
So we can make things safer too.
Yeah.
But preference would probably, from my point of view, is the underpass, because the overpass, you would need a lot of land just to throughout, get up and get down, which we just don't have. Where an underpass, there already is an underpass. Being able to start there isn't the
I'm on board. Same reasons, underpass seems just more logical. Some, not being an engineer though. And I don't think the distance is too great. I've seen some of the underpasses in the Middleton area. And, they're able to be kept bright and, safe, I guess, to that aspect.
I mean, there is something about an overpass that you could put more signage, you could make it, visual, welcome to Belleville and some of that sort of thing. But it's also, I assume is overpass is going to be a lot more expensive. Like the pricing is about double what an underpass would be, give or like.
Probably well figured,
it's
right?
to
If you add in all the land.
Yeah.
Required.
Right. Well, and we don't have the land. That's the other
Right.
part is that like, unless we did some funny diagonal stuff, it would be difficult to,
They found on putting signs or anything on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bridges too.
yeah.
The other thing that from this that I could use from your advice is, what is your top priority? I have a feeling what the top priority is. I guess, what is your guys' top priority? Like, what project out of all these recommendations would you say?
The underpass is the top priority, I would say. Actually, even to take it a step further is there's some comments on the draft here that talks about when the school campus expansion occurs. And I don't know that we can wait for that. I don't know when that's gonna happen, and we've been putting this off through getting this study done. Not this has been timely, I'm not saying that, but I don't know that, well, I guess some of the questions that come to mind for me are, does it make sense to try to get this done in conjunction with the 2030 update? I know that the road construction won't go that far, but is there doing it at the same time if the road's going to be closed and taken care of, that would make sense to
Very
aim?
much so from a traffic management.
That's kind of what I was thinking, if that makes sense, and if that's the case, then that's about as far out as I would want to think about pushing it. There's part of me that's like, do it before that if we could, but I also like, again, if it's going to save money, that sort of makes sense, but that's just my take. Because we're still 6 years away from that. That seems like a long time to wait.
I'll also add that the grant we were talking about, the funding will become available in 2029 and 20. So the funding timing works out well with that.
And to submit for that though, next year.
Yes, the application period would open in April.
Gotcha.
And we would be submitting probably at the summer for funding in 2020. That seems so far away. I
Yeah,
keep stopping
no, but
myself.
I mean, I
Right.
think sooner
But it
is,
is, yeah.
sooner's better. That's been an issue since that neighborhood started. And it's only gonna get worse.
And isn't the Tyler Street one there, isn't that something that we could incorporate when they're building that intersection?
Tyler Street.
I don't know if
I'm just looking at the map here.
you do the sidewalk on the north side of the street, but then the DOT would need to be involved, and Kevin probably knows more about a crosswalk. Like when we put in Tyler Street,
Right.
can we put in a crosswalk there too?
At Tyler Street,
Yeah, like when,
you'd have to get it permitted through them. I mean, any kind of crosswalk or anything has to be permitted, so, because being that it's 55 out there right now, that would be a concern probably of DOT, I would think.
really has not been much movement on there to want to get changed that.
Right, we sent an email up, but we did have a kind of a preliminary meeting with DOT on having that intersection, and there was nobody there that was basically saying like, yeah, you're not gonna get the speed reduced there right now.
Oh, they're saying it's still gonna be 55 out there.
That's what he was basically saying, but he gave us I can't remember that Christopher, somebody that
Yeah,
we sent an email to, because he said he'd be the one that would.
and he was on a call, another call, I think, even with you guys, it was pretty much the same story. Probably when all the houses are in, they would consider it, but at this point here. Which makes no sense. Another conversation for another day. Yeah,
I'm surprised when you're talking about 55. I'm surprised when you go leave Oregon from, I don't know, nothing, but from Oregon, coming this way, it's 55
Mhm.
when you get to all those new houses and stuff. And I'm just shocked. It's like, holy cow, there's people all over here and it's 55 miles an hour. So that surprises me. And so, yeah, that's why they're not down either.
Judy?
I got a couple of questions, and forgive me. Because first off, there was one public meeting. Is that the one up at the school district? Okay. I was say there was nothing downtown that I was. Secondly, how did the whole village get wrapped up into this? Because initially it was strictly bringing Olson Street, Olson, be able to cross 9269.
This is the Safe Routes to School study that was done 2 years ago. So it was intended to cover the whole village. This is the basis for the village to qualify for any grants, et cetera. But in order to do that, we needed to do a whole Safe Routes to School study for the entire village to basically say, these are the priorities, this is what's important, we've done it, and this makes sense for us to work on that. So we weren't gonna do a whole study just to do that crossover.
caveat to that is actually it's a bike ped safe routes to school. So it's really a bike and pedestrian plan, but we've added safe routes to school too, which means it's the entire village.
Interesting. My next question deals with Main Street. Because if there's going to be a sidewalk at some point that's going to connect the west side development to downtown, then we have to have sidewalks in order to bring people downtown, because that was one of the things that Realize and Rescue talked about the night we had Jeff Petrie's engineer architect for phase 4 in here about the older population being able to walk downtown without walking down the highway. So it makes sense because you got a PUD district up there and all of that is 55 and older. So granted, some of them will ride a bike, others may not, but they will walk. And that I assume is a part of this, correct?
So Gabe, pulled up the color from, but that's in the color. It might be a little bit easier to see. I think that, yeah. So I think that they're including what you're describing.
I think so.
But just, yeah.
They're including a sidewalk connection.
All the light blue is sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
so,
sidewalk up in front of the elementary school, that would be sidewalk on the south side of the street.
right, and the yellow,
The yellow is.
Essentially new sidewalk.
New
I
sidewalk.
think the blue is possible.
No paths, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I know the sidewalk.
so the yellow would take you down to Village Drive. And then from Village Drive, you could very easily walk downtown.
Correct, yeah, or you could take the blue and it would take you to Grant Street and you could walk on the existing sidewalk down Main Street.
Correct. Well, that one, if you jag down a little bit, you can come around, and come back up. I don't have all the stairs. It's,
Following what you're saying.
well, I'm saying, when you get to Village Drive, there is no sidewalk between.
Right, that would be new sidewalk. I'm saying, why would, you wouldn't go, I'm saying the path, on the south side, you would basically.
Correct.
From the development under the tunnel. And you'd be on the high school side and you'd be able to take that path up in front of the high school, right where the ravine is now. And
Know
then
where that
you'd-
is.
And then on Grant, and then you'd be able to take the sidewalk downtown from there.
Okay, but there's nothing on the north side.
Right now, and there wouldn't be on this, you'd put sidewalk, I think what they're proposing is you'd actually put sidewalk in on Village Drive
Okay. That's,
to do that. But, and it's not that I'm opposed to doing that, but I would say the priority is to me, the blue is the priority over the yellow, just because
it's,
bicycle traffic, that's the majority of people are gonna go that way instead of going to Village Drive. Because there won't be a sidewalk.
correct.
It would be more difficult to go on the north side. Because
That was-
the terrain there is more difficult. Because you're gonna have stairs or something to get, if you were trying to connect to Jean Street, there's a big hill there.
Correct.
To add one more thing, I guess, just, Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, this is basically kind of a high level plan too. So everything's got to get engineered, before any kind of construction. So, depending on how all that works and where utilities fall and everything else, things could change. But the idea is that if the village wanted to get some funding for this, it's showing a connection between point A and point B. So that could alter maybe the location a little bit. It's strictly based on the design, but that's kind of the idea behind it right now, is that there be a desired connection between 2 points.
All right. Any idea what it's gonna run to do this? As far as dollar? And how much?
So-
We're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, we don't have the numbers ready quite yet, but we will include those in the draft report and the final report. At least for, the items that are included in that short-term plan, we'll have cost estimates for that. And we'll also have, funding opportunities.
I'm curious to know what funding. Offset some of.
Well, it'll be stages as well. It's not like we're just gonna be like, okay, next year we're gonna put on all this trail stuff. That's not the way that's gonna work. But I think there's also, to Gabe's comments about the school district, is I suspect that there may be some funding from the school district. There's probably funding from the village tied into this, and certainly grants that we would try to drum up as well for all of this. So I think the tunnel, that's a primary piece, just because I don't disagree that we absolutely need trails and walkways, but if we at least have a tunnel to get from one side of the street to the other, that at least gets the kids across the street, which is the majority of the traffic. Then from there, I mean, you can still walk around the high school right now. It's not ideal, but that's doable. But ultimately, yes, we'd like to make it connected.
ice, the top priority was the underpass. That's part A, and then part B was the underpass to Grant. Because then that also, like, there's lighting there, you put a nice path there, put banners there, like, you can change the beautification of the village just like that. Nice entrance. And so like, the most bang for your buck, like that's, and it gets safe, because there is nothing there.
Well, and that's the connection to downtown for the west side that hasn't existed yet, so.
Someone get me up to speed a little bit on future school campus. Is that intended to be a high school and an elementary school?
Yeah.
Do we know? And the reason I'm asking is, you know, I know it's splitting hairs, but I'm looking at the placement of the underpass. And I'm sure there's 1,000 reasons why it's placed where it is here, but I'm thinking the underpass has the most value for elementary school kids because, you know, they're probably the least cautious when it comes to crossing the street. And positioning it closer to wherever their school would be. And, you know, based on, you know, Baker's Woods Phase 3 and Olson Ave and that, just moving that like to Olson Ave seems like it could be just a slightly better placement from looking at this, but I don't know, you know, maybe it's elevations and
It's
things.
also, if you go out there, Olson is flat, so
Right,
you'd be
so-
digging down to get underneath the road where the tunnel is right now. It's actually fully exposed. And on the other side is uneven on the
That's-
high school side, it's fairly exposed there.
Kind of how I
So
remember it.
that's actually just walked through it yesterday, so. It, on the north side, easy. On the south side, probably still need to dig out. And I'm not an engineer by any means, but that's generally what it makes.
It's just-
But I don't disagree.
That's what I expected to hear. I just,
The
you
issue
know,
is the high school, as I understand it, the new high school would be proposed, don't know when, all that sort of fun stuff, but that would be, as I understand it, over by the practice soccer fields and the small baseball diamond that's over there. So you're still gonna have, even that is, you'd have to go on the, like, to get directly to it, it would be on the west side of Olson, which is even less inviting for a tunnel than the east side of Olson. Because there's not even a slope up to 69 there. 69 is basically level with the lot, the vacant lot that's right there.
So I think there's two schools of thoughts happening in the school district. One is for the future school campus. The only thing that's gonna be built is a high school. So
Okay.
that's what they would build
and then elementary might move into the existing middle high school or,
potentially, but I think probably the elementary would stay as it is. Middle school would just take over the high school, and high school would get a new school.
that's probably ideally placed if that's
But the other part of that,
anticipated.
the other trend that's going on is moving the football stuff to where the future's campus is and having a new high school there. So I think there's two options that they're looking at.
Having a new high school where the football,
Like in that,
Football
the
field is.
practice field is currently, so like,
Yes.
and then having this just be sports on that side. So I think the school district needs to figure out their own stuff, but
Yeah.
those are the two options that I been discussing.
but either one,
it's-
it's to Mike's comment, for kids under sixth grade or so, I would assume this would be, it'd be better to have the tunnel where the cow path is.
My concerns are addressed.
Does anybody have any I'm sorry.
Oh, and we heard, I guess, when we were walking around there, that try to put facilities, whether it's an underpass or a crosswalk, where people are gonna use it. If we put it way down by the future campus, they're not, may not use it for who knows how long until they get built out, and so they still might be crossing.
Well, and that's the other thing. So if you think of traffic from the neighborhood of like residents like me or others to get downtown, I really don't want to have to go west to go back east
Right, I know.
because I'm lazy in my current state.
You're gonna want that for the younger kids. High school kids aren't gonna use it hardly if they don't have their license.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think that, but residents will use it. That's my point is that literally is the way to get
Yeah,
downtown
maybe
if you're
so.
walking for.
We should worry more about kids. Kids getting through there.
We may need some budget for graffiti removal in the town.
Yeah, you will.
Possibly, yeah.
So the
Why
other,
don't we just paint a mural inside of it and then they won't want to?
yeah,
Yeah, like that'll happen.
Could happen.
was, you see those little pink dots? Those are bump outs on Main Street. They would kind of help traffic, calming measures, helping cross the path, the street a little bit more. Do you guys like that idea? Because that would be part of the 2030 project, which if that is, then I need to be getting with Kevin next year to get that part of that plan. A bump out would look kind of like,
It's a bump out.
Yeah, the little.
it's a little bit of a.
So it absolutely would be, the only concern that I have, and it doesn't necessarily need to look exactly like that, would be to limit the impact to reducing,
That far? No.
limiting the reduction of parking spaces with that.
So
So,
you'll do is one or two, depending on how you do that,
yeah,
but it allows pedestrians to get out into traffic, a little bit protected, and
well, it'll slow traffic as well, which is, I
Right.
think, one of the big concerns for Main Street.
it
So,
makes the crossing distance a lot
Yeah.
shorter. I mean, not a lot, but somewhat
Sure.
shorter, so you can cross it.
right.
Beautification.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah.
The example there is actually in Verona, where they've done some
Sure.
color concretes and stamping and things like that. Right.
Because these, it's a problem.
Right.
Traffic, it's a lives.
Does anybody disagree with the priorities of the tunnel versus the pass versus the, kind of what we're discussing and all? I think that's kind of in line with what we sort of expected, but
So it sounds like, the underpasses are priority,
number one,
and then work towards a connection path from.
from the tunnel to
The grant.
the grant, correct,
Kind of in front of the elementary school.
correct, right.
And then any bump outs or anything we can do with the other project.
Yeah, I think,
DOT project to kind of help it.
is anybody concerned about bump? I mean, the only thing I'm concerned about is limiting parking, but
You wouldn't have to do it at every intersection. We just kind of show that you could find what intersections are going to be.
Right.
more useful.
well, I think part of that whole process for when 2030 happens is gonna be figuring out where we want crosswalks as well and what the state will allow us to
Correct.
put in for crosswalks. And I think anywhere we'd have a crosswalk, we would have a bump out would be ideal, but that's,
Some get used more than others, so.
yeah, of course.
Well,
Well, just as Judy mentioned, traffic is an issue. I mean, it's like traffic's not, I mean, I don't think anybody's going 50 down Main Street downtown, but it goes quicker than it ought to for people that try to get from one side of the street to the other. Like the laws here are not necessarily that pedestrians have right of way is what it feels like sometimes, just because there's a lot of blindness because you've got parking and you don't see the pedestrians and people aren't expecting them and they are trying to get to that side of town or they're trying to get to that side of town.
Even one resident noted that most of the parking has to be on the south side. If you're going to the businesses on the north side, there's not much for parking there. So there's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot more crossings that would happen for business to get on those sides.
Correct. And that will also change as well because we've got a few other establishments that are moving in that are probably going to be, more traffic, more walking traffic
Right.
and that sort of thing. So, and I think that's where the bump outs, I think, do open that up a little bit. So again, it takes away parking on Main Street, which isn't great, but might be better just because it would open up the facades that are coming into town as well. But
I also think the bump outs would increase safety for things like the UFO Day parade and such, you know, how we have the kids that creep out into, you know, the middle of the road. It provides a little bit of a visual cue on, hey, back it up. So
You're talking about 2030, is our whole road gonna be shut down?
yes. So DOT is actually resurfacing at least the middle lanes and we have an opportunity to basically resurface the whole thing, which I suspect will do. But it could also include a whole slew of other things, because whenever you choose, just like we did on 69 North and South, whenever you do a project that big, it's, since you're digging in, you might as well do the stuff that you need to do. So that's where the stuff kind of comes in. But yeah, everything from, as I understand, is from River Street all the way out to Jean Road, basically, is going to get resurfaced. So yeah, in 2030, I think is what the plan is. They're already doing some of the surveying, I believe. So.
So they have time to be ready for it in 6 years.
But when grants start opening up, like in April of 6 years beforehand, it's like we gotta start planning and start to lay the foundation. Otherwise, we'll be,
It goes fairly quickly.
I know it does, but we'll be feeling the bill a lot more if we don't. So we don't have room for that. So. Any other questions we need to, or does that give you kind of foundational for?
If anything comes up after the meeting or
Sure.
middle of the night, you wake up and think, oh, I got a bright idea, just let us know. We're still in the development.
Is there going to be drainage put in there? At that tunnel?
Right.
Yeah.
Because I know.
Yeah, we can't have it act as both as a pedestrian and a drain, so there'll be a side pipe. Because it is a major drain.
And we would expect it would be lit. It's gonna be ADA compliant and all that sort of fun stuff. It's not like we're gonna carve out the cow tunnel a little bit more and say, ta-da, here you go. So. Good. Well, thank you both.
Thank you guys. I'll leave the boards with you guys. So if you guys have other questions. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, can you forward those comments from Jim to us?
Yeah, okay.
Unless he copied us on them.
I don't
Okay.
think you do. I think you just send it to me.
Okay, thanks.
Do we need to take any action on that? I don't think we do, but just feedback, so cool. Next, new business, item number 10, discuss and consider an employee assistance program.
So this is, we came up with this, or it had been brought to my attention at a department head meeting, that this is not a thing that we offer. And I was talking to other municipalities, and this is something that we should offer. So an employee assistance program is a mental health program it's $1,000 for 45 employees or below, regardless of how many employees you have. And it is a tool that you mainly use for those public safety personnel. A police officer was involved in a shooting, or they went to a school shooting and something goes wrong or whatever, and police chief says, hey, X, you need to go talk to the counselor. This provides that counselor. Our police officers do go to somebody, but it's a random person that's not a contract with the village. It might be different every time. This is a set in stone program that if something does happen, the chief can just say, you're going here. Do what you need to do. Or, hey, I'm going through divorce. I have 5 free sessions in this, or then or miscarriage, or whatever is going on in your life. You have 5 free times per issue. Doesn't matter how many of those you have. Doesn't matter if I have them, Ian, Maren, Andrea, like there's no limit, doesn't matter. And everything is very confidential. I'll know how many emails were sent back and forth, but I won't know who did it or what or was not. I'll know kind of what our usage is. They'll also provide trainings. So they would come in and talk to all of our staff about burnout or DEI or anything like that. So it's a mental health service. Resource. Almost every municipality has it. And it's definitely something you have to have for law enforcement. The police department or the EMS has their own separate one. Fire has their own separate one. Our police officers just go to somebody else. This would put everybody under the same contract. And the other aspect of that we discussed with finance was maybe put the senior center under that as well. Their clientele, age-wise, there's issues that go with that, and that can put a mental strain on them, and it gives them somebody that they could talk to as well. So that was my thought, but up to you guys.
Yeah, I think this came before finance, and finance was unanimously recommending to. Judy?
Doesn't the health insurance
Not for therapy, like this sort of stuff.
really?
Yeah, there might be like psychological stuff that you could do, which would maybe overlap a little bit, but this is really designed to be just, a lot of my company does it, like most employers do now, where it's basically just it's an option for people to reach out to if they encounter something that they're stressed about. They've got a resource to say, hey, can you talk to me about whatever?
XYZ. And I can, if somebody's showing up, you can tell they're having personal issues. I can say, hey, I need you to go talk to blank. Or I could then say, I could go to that practice of the family service medicine. I can say, hey, I have this employee. I can tell they're depressed. I'm not sure if I can, what to say. Can you help coach me? Or can you come meet with them with me? Or can you do all of those trainings to help me as managers know when my employees are going through issues, or even notice that our public works notices it. So there's a lot of free tools that we get as the management side as well.
And this is $1,000 for everybody. It's not $1,000 per employee. It's $1,000 per year for everybody, which would include public works, everybody at
The library-
Village Hall, everybody at the library, senior center, and police. So it's, to me, sort of a no-brainer in terms of cost and benefit analysis. And I think we've got money in the budget that
We'll put it under HR for next year.
we can fill it that. So
I'll make a motion that we pass the employee assistant program for $1,000 a year. That's not going to include everybody.
Second.
everybody wants a second. Shelley did it first, so I'm giving it to her. Okay. We've got a motion by Deb, seconded by Shelley to approve the employee assistance program for $1,000 per year. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Number 11, discuss and consider the 2025 personnel handbook.
All right, so I'm gonna share my screen here. Well, this has been a long time coming. Karen started badgering me on this kind of like when I first started. This is about a 15, 16 month process. The Finance and Personnel Committee was working on this when Terry decided to leave the board and not run again. He still wanted to help finish this, put this across the finish line. So you guys created the ad hoc committee. So that was Jeff, Mike, and myself with Terry. We went line by line. We wrote everything and then presented that to the Finance and Governance Committee last week. Finance and Governance Committee made their recommendations, and it's up to you guys to make your formal recommendations. Couple just basics that you guys should just know. This covers union and non-union employees. If there is a issue within the police, the WPPA union, the union prevails if it is in there. If it is not in there, disagreement prevails. The employees covers applies to all employees. The library board is expected to go along with this, just as all the regular village employees would be. There was one amendment addendum at the end, Amendment I for the library board time off policy. They wanted a policy a little bit different to kind of help fit their needs, as there are regulations that's a little bit different than kind of village hall needs. But it's going to cover all village employees, but does not cover you guys. Does not cover committee members, volunteers, or contractors. So Kevin, Lori, Karen, who do the food bank, they're not village employees. And then nature of employment. We are at will. So which means employment is at the will of either party. You can determine to terminate, or they can determine to terminate. That is something that wasn't in the last policy, but other issues we decided it was going to be in all of our just it's also in all of our first job offers. Other handbook basics. Regular full-time employees are exempt. We have 4 of them, and all 4 of us are in this room right now. We are the salaried employees. We're not eligible for overtime or comp time. You have regular full-time non-exempt. Those are your 2080 employees. And they're eligible for overtime comp. That's generally public works. You have regular part-time, they're the 1,200 to 2,080. Those are like Tierney and Merit, or Tierney and Kit. And then temporary, these are the summer helps or youth apprentice or anything like that. If you ever hear those terms laid out, that's who I'm speaking about. Overtime. Overtime is defined work as more than 40 hours per work week. That is PTO or sick and vacation does not count as a work week. Work time, holidays do, but the sick and the vacation does not count as work time. And then if an employee is called in to work 2 hours before their shift, they get the actual hours worked. If they're called in more than 2 hours early, they get that 2 hour minimum. Flex time, we tend to work more than 40 hours a week. We don't need to take vacation time. If we worked over 40, we just say, hey, I worked a lot. I'm gonna go home a little bit. As long as it works with our schedules. That's basically, that's all these things. So when I will kind of go over the changes that were in the personnel manual. That's what the rest of this presentation will be. And then I can walk through the updated manual as well. Comp time. So our current rule is employees may convert overtime to comp time. Employees build banks and pay out whatever they want. It's rebuildable. There's no cap on how many hours, and the department head has the say over overtime versus comp time. However, in actuality, that's not bad practice. I'm taking overtime, I'm taking comp time. Discussion, I'll just pick one or the other. Our proposed rule is it's a 40-hour limit that is paid the first payroll in January. Comp time balances are not rebuildable. And then you don't need supervisory permission on taking comp time. Comp time is time and a half. You get paid out time and a half, or it's an extra week of vacation. So you get that. You can pick either one that you like. Do either. And the one thing that I was going to change that's changed in the manual just not in this presentation is that they could pay it out whenever they want. It's their time. I don't think it's appropriate to say you're not going to get paid in December. Just whenever they want to get it paid, they can. It's certainly their time. But once they pay it out, it's not rebuildable if they reach that 40. Any issues with that change?
Gabe, I have a question.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get paid, so you kind of, looking at your first sentence under the proposed rule that they get paid in January. And then you said they could get paid anytime. They get paid they should get paid in the year that they earned it. Otherwise, they'll get paid at a higher rate if they wait till the next year, correct?
Yep, that's the year. It can be paid at any time of the year in which they earned it.
Well, we'll get paid at the least in the last payroll of that year.
Yeah,
That's the-
We're not gonna carry balances over year to year.
Okay,
That's-
just
That's
maybe we might need to clarify that in here, so I think.
The actual manual has it cleared out. I just didn't update it.
the summary. Yeah, this is like a summary. Some of this has got. Okay, too.
Exceptional performance bonus.
Okay, somebody else has got their hand up. I don't know who it is.
I think that's Terry.
Terry?
Yes. I'm gonna make one short comment. Looking at the grievance procedure, it would seem to me that would make it easier for any future boards or whatever, if there was a choice of where the independent officer would be chosen from, instead of just leaving it as a blank slate and then trying to figure out, well, where do we go to find somebody?
So we had, yeah.
So just throw that out. Yes,
So take,
add more to the hassle grievance.
okay, so Terry's talking about our grievance procedure.
Yeah, well, yeah, so Terry, you're just saying to clarify where that person where that individual would be chosen from, just to give clear guidance on it. Is that what you're describing, Terry?
Yeah, right. And you could have more than one place, like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, Gary could probably jump in here, but I know years ago, I think we had a situation where we had someone from our, our law office, uh, be the, whatever you call it. Yes,
Arbitration.
yeah, right. I don't care where it comes from. It's, but
Yeah.
I think it would just, clear things up, speed things up, and in case you ever got to that point in the future. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, and I don't know if we could work with the law firm to basically determine what a good source for that would be, but I don't have any objection to
What I think,
making that clearer.
so that's step 4, the prior steps conclusion shall be the final unless the employee files a written request with the clerk no later than 5 days after the date of the written decision, requesting a hearing before an impartial hearing officer, IHO, selected by the village. That is the only language. How we select that is up to us. It just cannot be a employee or an official of the village.
No, I understand. I think what Terry's saying, and maybe it doesn't need to be in the handbook, but there should be a process behind the scenes that outlines how that happens so that it's consistent and the board wouldn't have to revisit that every time. Be different. I think it's Terry's concern. That doesn't seem
Plus,
unreasonable. Potentially seems.
Plus, if you ever get to that situation, and I don't think
Right.
that you will, it'll just make things work a little bit more smoothly, I
Yeah.
think.
One less thing to be concerned about.
I'd say let's work on an internal policy. My only hesitation is this is the language the attorney said and does not want to deviate from it. So an internal policy on how we.
Yeah,
select
that's my
that,
point, is I don't know that we need to change the language in
I don't
the
think so.
employee handbook, but let's check with the attorney to see if there's an internal policy that can be associated with this, so that when it says selected by the village, there's literally here's a how to do that if it's necessary, and I think that would solve both problems.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, thanks, Terry,
Thanks, Terry.
and thank you for all your work on this.
You're welcome, Mike.
Exceptional performance bonus. So this is a newer item. We have discussed this a while back, but this is a one-time, non-basis building performance bonus that is intended to acknowledge exceptional year or specific achievement. So it's given by you under my recommendation. Obviously, your department head is probably recommended it to me. I'm recommending it to you, but it's your decision. It would get paid out in January, so we would budget for it to say, hey, this is what we had expected from this last year. This is what we're going to pay out in January. Eligibility assumes responsibility outside of a position description or generally assigned to a higher paid position. So what has happened in the past is that you've had a vacancy in the administrator position. Other employees have been called in to do an extra work. Then you have issues with getting paid. Why did this person get paid more than this person? Blah, 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 blah. And it's if you haven't had an intro. And so my recommendation is you don't do that. You pay after the work is done and say, hey, we like to really appreciate all that work that you've done. Here is that exceptional performance. Or they take responsibility of a specific project that requires extensive planning. An example could be like we have to switch to 2 polling locations. That's a lot of work. That means you have to run 2 local elections. You have all this double paperwork. Like that's something that would be like, oh, I think that could use a little bit of a monetary thing to that. I would then recommend it to you guys. Or they develop a specialized skill and knowledge outside of it. The thing that you want to have this in there mainly because you guys can do this anyway. Whether this is the policy or not, you guys determine salaries. And if you guys want to give somebody an exceptional performance bonus, you can. And so it's better to have guidelines in there that say this is how we make that decision versus just being able to do it because you can do it anyway. So it's better to have some type of structure to say this is.
Yeah, so this is really just, again, this is a long time ago that we were talking about this, but it's really, if you think about compensation for staff, there's salary, there's performance improvement, right? An increase to that salary. This would be a standalone, flexible option for the board to consider for incentivizing or appreciating certain performance from individuals, right? It's there are years that we would not give anybody an exceptional performance bonus, and there could be years that we would give one or more exceptional performance bonuses. There's no set dollar amount, no set percentage or anything like that. It's literally just the flexibility. So you could say, without affecting somebody's permanent pay rate, say, hey, we'd like to say thank you for the great job you've done this year. You took on this and whatever. It's really that flexible.
And that's, the non-basis building is really important because we've added wages onto people, but then you have issues with WRS or transition over from the next year. Is it 3% over what they're making now, or is it 3% over what they're making last year, if that's the COLA? This is just a one-time non-basis billing. This is a chunk of money that we'd like to see. Makes it simpler. It's easier with WRS. It's just, you can just have it as a supplemental check. Move on. Longevity incentive. So our current rule is you have years completed 5 through 9, years completed 10 through 19, and 20 years completed. So if you've been here 5 years, it's $25 times. Been here 8 years, it's $25 times 8. And you get this every year after that fifth year. If you're here 11 years, it's 35 times 11. 19 years, you're at 35 times 19. And then if you're 20 years, it's 45 times whatever you've been here. So 23's payment was $5,800, 24's payment was $4,100, and 25's payment under this schedule would be $4,700.
It's for all staff.
For all staff, like that's what we budgeted for. Years. Our proposed rule is we would make it on the 5th anniversary and then every 5 years following. So you would get it on your 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th. Part of it too is making it special. Like say, hey, you've been here 5 years, you've been here 10 years. We really want to appreciate your hard work. We'd like to invite you to a board meeting. There's a little certificate saying, hey, thank you for all the service that you've done. Actually make something out of it. And then we were thinking $100 for years of service. So if you've been here 5 years, you get $5. You've been here 10 years, you get $1,000. 15 years, $1,500. And then if we did it this way, our 23 payment would have been $1,500. Our 24 payment would have been $6,000, and our 25 payment $1,000. This was our recommendation to you guys. It's a lot simpler, a lot easier. Saves money, and it kind of makes it a little bit of a big deal. Say, hey, we want to really appreciate you. And it's a social media post, it's a thing, it's a whatever. Just to say, this person been here 25 years. That doesn't happen very often. Any issues with that page?
I'm curious. Who's been here 10 years?
There's numerous employees. The majority, though, is still under the 9. Yeah,
I was gonna say.
4 to 8 is tend to be our right now is where we're at, but we got probably 4 or 5 employees.
There's Vicky, Molly, Susan's library,
Rachel,
Tom.
Tom's been here 30 some.
Well, you said over 10.
Oh,
I think that's
Teresa.
yeah. I think that's it though.
Clothing and safety allowance. Our current rule is $300 per year for steel-toed boots. We have been doing that for umpteen years, but I've not really found where that's truly documented. We've just been common practice. Ingrained in stone. So my new recommended rule is $200 per year for steel-toed boots, and then $50 for prescription safety glasses. I have, contacts in right now. I'm expected to work on the field. We would pay for that $50 for that prescription to get safety glasses in there. That's a one-time cost. If your prescription changes, you would present that to us and we would give you that $50 again. It was just, it's broken on the site or you get a new prescription, you'd have to prove it to us and then we would give you that.
$200 cover a pair of shoes.
It can. I think that's where it depends on the person. Like I could buy one for 150 or I might want to buy one that's a little nicer for 250. But then the village is covering 200. So up to you. So.
It's still tipped, right?
Classes are, you can do that.
Speak up, Ashley.
Can you get safety glasses with your
Oh, yes.
subscription in them? They're that cheap?
No, but it would help cover some of the cost.
Yeah, we don't cover anything right now, I guess is the point,
Thank you.
right? So, do we know how much? How much are we, like, right now, we're 300 per year for steel toed boots, and how much money are we talking about?
So 3 times 4.
$1,200, so we're went from 1,200
5 technically, I guess.
five, so 1,500 to 1,000, so we're saving $500. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing is I'm like. If we were talking about 5 or 10 grand, I might leave it at 300 and 50. That's, as I think about it, but I could be persuaded. I just don't, I don't know why it's not it's not going to be a huge money saver. And it's not like it's a horrible bonus. No, I don't, well, Jim, guys aren't buying like 4 pairs of boots because they aren't coming in with new boots every day because we're giving them a stipend of $300.
I mean, the guys aren't going. Just say if they're buying good for boots.
Well, that's good. I mean,
That's what I want.
Right,
they're on their feet all day and
yeah, but 300 got somebody 2 pair of boots.
right.
And 250 got somebody 1 pair.
Well, that's kind of my point is that like, I don't know why we'd want to cut into that benefit. If they could still get 2 pair of boots, but they'd be on the hook for another $100. I'd probably leave it at 300. That's just my take.
I have no. Yeah. 200 was pretty much just
Yeah.
there. Was
Yeah, I understand.
I have, 3 sons that work in the trades. And they're allowed $200. And their boots usually cost $150. Anywhere from 120 to 180. And I mean, and they're allowed 1 pair per year. And those boots are pretty darn well made. So, I mean, I can't imagine somebody actually needing, unless there was an accident involved or something, that they would need a second pair. So I think we should just leave it at 200 myself.
I'll push back on that and say that for people that are on their feet all day, I would never want to do that type of, I've had to do that job in a lot of years ago, but if I'm able to have 2 pair of boots that I can rotate over the course of a year or wear it just for $100 for the 5 people we're talking about. And we've done it. It's not like we're increasing it. This has been our policy for ever, basically. It's, I don't know what, that's my concern is I don't know that I want to go to current staff and say, you're getting $100 less to buy and you're spending your boots. Like that's a benefit we're taking away from them. We're doing enough other stuff with things. I just don't know that that's beneficial for us. But I don't disagree, but
Yeah, I mean, I have an engineer, electrician, and a plumber. I get 1 pair a year, and my plumber, who you would think would want 2 pairs because of his work, he'll wear the same ones till they wear out, and they don't even wear out within a year. But he'll get his, he'll get it.
understandable. I think you have a comment too. Go ahead.
Why are we paying for their shoes? My husband stood on his feet for 30-some years and he had to buy his own. And my son is a carpenter. He's on his feet all day. He buys his own. You guys are trying to save money everywhere. Why are we buying their shoes?
This has been a policy and this is pretty common across, I think if you went to most municipalities, you're doing this sort of stuff. Just like we pay for the uniforms, and that
They
sort of.
better be happy then because
All right,
lots of people have to buy their own steel
I
toe
don't-
boots.
I have to buy my own shoes too, Connie, and
Yeah.
I wear them every day, but like I don't disagree.
I'm just saying, you guys are trying to save money. There you go.
And I will add to that comment. My husband worked at the state for 37 years, He was supervisor of the southeast area. So, of maintenance, and he did a lot of walking and a lot of everything. And he had to buy his own shoes too. He didn't get any money extra. So I'm with you, Connie, on that one.
I'm just sort of to your point too, is why bring it down? My husband has steel toes and he needs a couple pair a year.
Things aren't gonna go down, they're gonna go up.
Exactly.
Agreed.
You know,
I don't-
and
I don't-
think it's a really good fit for them to still be able to do their jobs, since most of them are just basically required, like do help with that cost.
I would add that that's a benefit and a way to keep good people here. I mean, we've had that as an issue as well, right? So.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, Connie, that we're trying to save money, but $500 isn't, it's a start, but that's not gonna be, you know,
Gonna break us.
that's not gonna buy our tunnel.
Yeah.
Change it to 300.
That's what I would suggest, but
I agree.
Yeah, on that.
Yes, Lisa?
yeah, we'll leave it, yeah.
Clothing provided.
No, in the treatment plant, yes, but not.
Okay. Are we ever actually going to use the clothes?
Some do, some don't. So
Yeah.
income continuation insurance. So the village, one thing that we're looking to do was remove PTO time. And we'll actually remove vacation, sick, personal, and go into a PTO process instead of a different breakout process. And one thing that we were going to do is with income continuation, we're getting rid of sick time, cover up to, it's an FMLA qualified event, the 30 days up to the income continuation insurance was kicking in. But that kind of goes into the paid time off conversation.
Yeah, can we start off with the foundational here,
Yeah.
which was that we're changing, the proposal is to change to a PTO system rather than having holidays would still exist, but sick time, vacation time being separate, and it's all rolled into PTO. But as part of that whole mechanism change, that's what warranted the income continuation insurance, because the sick leave would now be part of PTO. So to basically provide individuals with, if they were sick for a month, right, or sick for multiple weeks, that it wouldn't force them to tap into their PTO necessarily. I think it was the basis of the logic for this, in terms of how it's structured.
Exactly. So one thing to note here is this is not going to be effective until for 1/1/26. So we will give staff a year to kind of acclimate, figure themselves out, figure their life out, and then it'll start January 1st. Because then there's PTO is no rollover. You use it, you lose it. That's going to be an adjustment. So it's going to be, let them play it next year out, and then knowing January 1st, that's what's going to kick in. So paid time off right now is you have holidays, 11 holidays. Not changing. Sick leave, you accrue 8 hours per month. Max bank is 240 hours. For vacation, you have year of hire is 40 hours prorated. 1 through 4 is 80 hours. 5 through 9 is 120. 10 through 19 is 160, and 20 years is 200 hours. So 40 hours can be carried over for full-time staff for vacation. 80 can be carried over for department heads. And that leaves us a lot of time that we have stored up. So under our PTO schedule, and it's laid out here, our pros would be that we have roughly so in the old system, our liability is over 7,000 hours, which is 883 days, which is 2.4 years. If we move to this recommended PTO schedule, you have 4,300 less days and 544 less days, and you cut a year and a half. That's pretty good. It's about the best you're gonna get. The one reason for PTO is you're treating adults like adults. Let them use their time. It's their time. It's not rebuildable. They can use it, plan ahead. It's up to them. how we've put it is a 3-day. If you have scheduled leave and you have unscheduled. Scheduled leave is if you've asked for PTO 3 days in advance, saying, hey, it's Monday, I try to be out Friday. Andrea looks at schedules like, yep, that works, fine. I give you my check mark, great, it's approved. Yeah, Andrea, I'm gonna be gone Thursday, and it's Wednesday. I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, that's not scheduled leave. 2 days later, it happens again, and 2 weeks later, it happens again. 3 of those leads to a disciplinary just process to have that conversation, what's going on, what's happening. It's mainly for Andrea to know with her employees, what's going on in your life. Maybe there's something big that's going on, and then you can have that. Yes, or it's just, I'm taking off time and don't really care about the rules, well, then they can go through this disciplinary process. But it forces the manager and the employee to have those basic conversations on what's going on. So one of the yeah.
How does that work if somebody turns up sick? It's not, I'm not going to schedule, I'm going to be sick on Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, to
But
me,
if
that's a
it's-
slap in the face, and because, and I'm using it from personal
So that's
experience.
3 uses of unscheduled time in a row. So I'm saying, if you're gonna be sick, that's gonna happen. I'm sick.
You're
That's
sick for
fine.
3 days in a row, that's not 3.
That's not the process.
It would be three separate times. So if you're sick 1 week and then you're sick the next week and you're sick the following week, that would be 3 times. And it might be a conversation, well, we're picking on you, Andrea, but
That's okay.
with Andrea, and Andrea would say, oh yeah, you were sick. Move
Such
on
life.
with life. That's the way it works.
And that's treating adults like adults, but
The merit or anything necessarily.
Well, having a husband that has the health problems he did, we never knew when he was going to be sick
and
or
then
when he was going to miss a day. And he would do his damnedest to go to work even when he was sick. And I mean, there were many days he would come home and literally collapse.
Oh.
And I would pull him in the door.
And I think my counter to that is you should have that conversation with your supervisor to say, hey, I'm going through this health issue right now. There might be times. And if it's a major issue, you've also taken FMLA or you're on income continuation. You should have those conversations. This forces adults to be adults to have that. Hey, I'm not going to be here. My wife's going through cancer. There's an issue, whatever, like forces that conversation. But if you're never having that conversation, you're not talking to your supervisor, well, then yeah, then we're going to go through that disciplinary process.
I see where you're coming from, but at the same token, I've worked a good many years that not every supervisor is as good as what you might be, and be understanding about sick and feeling bad. And so I am being on the cautious side of saying, I don't like it because that's penalizing somebody that really has a hard time.
And
He
I
is sick,
valid
or
that.
she is sick, or whatever.
My counter to that, I guess, is I'm HR. So if something's going on, they're coming to me anyway. So I will step
Yeah,
in.
but what I'm saying, Gabe, is you probably would be very sympathetic, but there are people out
Oh, I
there
agree.
that don't give a damn.
I agree.
I mean, seriously.
That's also our role as board though, is if we found that we had a manager that was pulling that kind of garbage, we would get rid of them.
Would we?
I would hope so.
I would hope so too, but
Well,
that's
that's-
how it works in the real world.
Definitely can. So
Okay.
I wouldn't make that your necessarily the reason why you wouldn't approve it. The other there are 2 cons. Average lost time is 177 hours on average for an employee. But you gotta take that with kind of the way there, because you have 35-hour last year or the last 2 years. Our average was 3,500 hours of unused time. So if all that time was being used, I would say, yeah, that is a loss of time. We have 3,500 hours of unused time at the end of the year. So I don't have,
If we take that, how many people we have, take that 3,500, what does that work out to as average unused time? Does that make sense? What I'm asking.
140-ish.
Yeah, so it's not 30 more hours.
And again, we're adding the income continuation insurance, which is what that last slide was. So we're covered.
If I understand you right, that it would be, every employee would actually be losing 177 hours, but the average would be 140 hours?
No, so the 3,500 hours of unused time Jeff just asked kind of how many employees we have, what is the average? And the average is 170 hours that is being lost.
So to make a comparison, going from the current structure to the new structure, the average lost time is 177 hours.
Which is
But-
4 weeks and 2 days. That's a lot of time.
But it's time they haven't used.
Correct. So let me state it again. Let me finish. So from what we currently have to the proposal would be 177 hours average. But right now, 3,500 hours aren't being used, which is an average per employee of 143 hours. So it's really, on average, only about a 30 or 40 hour loss of what the current schedule looks like to the proposed schedule. Additionally, we are also instituting a 30-day income continuation insurance. Instead of on par, we would be talking 173 to 177, basically, in terms of the way that that would work. So it's very close to what they're getting, but you're correct. If you look at it on an individual by individual basis, certainly there will be people that will lose time versus individuals that don't relative to that, but on average, it's very similar.
They get to carry over sick time, right?
Currently,
Use it.
yeah.
So I really think the people are getting really badly screwed. I'm sorry that if they're losing that time,
So
because it's now PTO time.
they're not using it once, so they're not
Well,
losing.
they're not using it, but their chances are probably, and I can't say without checking the records, they're probably the time that they're not using is sick time.
It is all sick time.
So therefore, they could accumulate that if they ever down the road had a really bad illness or a car accident or something.
Only up to 240 hours.
Yeah.
If I could, I had a kid in the hospital for 6 weeks. Under the current time, I would use all my sick time because I have plenty racked up. I'm definitely in the group losing a whole bunch. I would use that, if my kid was in the hospital for 6 weeks, I would use that, cover that time off, right?
Right.
Under the new system, I would be paid for the first 30 days. So I still could be in the hospital with my kid for 30 days. I'm not gonna worry about losing any money because the village is gonna cover me under the income continuation. And then I'm gonna come back after the 6 weeks and everything's gonna be fine. So I'm technically not really losing anything. We're just structuring it from I have a bank to pull from to the village is still gonna cover me under this different way we're calling it. So on my eyes, I'm not losing really any benefit necessarily. We could call it, I am losing the time because I won't have a bank anymore, but I'm still going to be covered in a situation if I had a kid in the hospital for 6 weeks. And I think for most employees, that's going to be the comfort that we're looking for. We just want to know we're covered and we would still be covered regardless under both systems.
That may be true and it may not be because.
No, it is.
No, that,
Pay.
It's
Are they
so,
paying you a full salary or is it gonna be?
but it doesn't matter. So right now,
Well, yeah.
no, where the max accrual right now is 240,
Right,
which is 30 days.
Mhm.
That's what the village is covering.
okay.
Full pay. It's not.
So that just completely just wiped out the bank. The banks are even. The income continuation up to that and the sick bank equal the exact same amount. So we aren't losing a benefit. They're just technically losing the thought that they have the 30 days built up. It's not.
You have a comment or question?
I just have a question or comment or whatever. I might not even be in the right situation here, but you're talking about she uses up her 30 days and then she's broke. Do you have where I have 30 days and I can give her some of my time?
Connie,
It's a great transition, Con.
who is so on it?
That's the next slide.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't read it. I didn't see it.
I'm scared to
Yeah,
play.
it actually is on the next
It
slide.
literally
It's
is.
the bottom.
So donate
leave
policy.
policy.
We will have that. So that is you must be here at least a month before you can take advantage of that. But for medical emergencies or major disasters, it's completely voluntarily and confidential. Hey, and it's in the same year, so I know I'm not gonna be spending my time. So I'm gonna put a week into there. And then Connie said, I'm sick. Can I do this? You talk to me. I will be the one to say. okay,
Not you
let's
because
have
you're the donator, but you because you're the
Yeah, I'm
HR.
Okay,
That's, yeah.
So it's completely,
Clarify.
completely voluntarily. And it usually works very much in our favor because the people who donate generally are generally the people who aren't going to be using their time, the higher paid employees,
Yeah,
the salaried employees, because flex time and all that.
that's a
So-
good thing.
My hourly rate is higher than probably a public works employee that might have to have that issue. So instead of me being paid out that rate, they're paying the public and works employee at their rate.
Yeah.
So it tends to actually work better for the village then. The only time that is not eligible is if the person is on unpaid leave. And that is because of a disciplinary issue. That is the only time they're not eligible for this many reasons. So that's new technically.
Exception, right? You don't have an employee that comes in, we pay them.
No.
What would happen, Gabe, this is far fetched, but what would happen? So say Mara needed some more time, so, and I, say for example, I was the one that had the time, and I very rarely ever used it, which I didn't have my regular job. So I donated to her so that she would have a full paycheck. Bingo, totally unexpected down the road, all of a sudden, something happens and I need it, and I've already given it away. What happens to that person?
You gave it away.
So I'm just.
You made that decision, but you also think about it the same way. You went on a vacation in January, you used 3 weeks, you only have 4. You've also made that conscious decision then, whether if you used it on a vacation or if you donated it.
You would also be eligible for the same pool that you donated to them. So
Sure.
if somebody else had donated to that pool and you need to use it,
But if nobody donated.
then
you
you'd be
just-
out. Yeah.
Wow,
It's
that's
kind
not
of
a
like
good
donating a
idea.
kidney. You don't get another one back.
It's a little different than donating a kidney, but yes, it's.
Like we had that.
Weird circumstance. What happened?
That's like-
HR is stepping in. This is gonna kick in, again, like I said, in 26. The other benefit that is kind of going away with the sick leave is the health reimbursement account. If you have that over that 240, you can go, it gets put into your health retirement account. If you're under 10 years, it's 65% of the unused time. If you're over 10 years, it's 100%. If you don't stay 10 years, we get all the money back, all that. It'll stay, all the employees that have earned it now, it's theirs, it's a wash. And they would be eligible up to next year too, so anybody that had over 240 hours in December of next year would still be eligible to start the health reimbursement account. We're not changing that, like, you still have 1 year for that. But we are removing that, the village is not automatically gonna pay into it. If you want to make it like a deferred comp that you want to add on to yourself, part of your salary, you are more than welcome to do that. But the village just will not be doing that. Which will save us about $5,000 to $6,000 a year too.
Will you be paying out unused PTO if employment should end?
Yep, so we, did I put it here? Prorated, so what you've accumulated, so you start in January, you're gonna get that full 12 months. Starting July, you're gonna get the 7, whatever. And so same, you leave in January, you probably didn't accrue much, that's what you get paid out. But you leave in November, you didn't use much, you're gonna get a much less.
Questions or comments?
And then Ian made a comment too. I think Public Works should be wearing their uniform. We pay for it. We do a cleaning service. I do think it should be required that they look alike. So I will add that to there as well. That as much as reasonably possible, you need to be wearing your. Obviously, you work in the morning, you get muddy and wet, you have to go home and change. Like, it's not, I'm not.
Judy, do you have a comment, a question?
I do have a question. One thing I didn't see in here is drug and alcohol testing.
We have a whole in the back.
I don't really made many changes to it, I guess. Is what.
Well, in 21, Federal Department of Transportation has a ruling that anyone with the CDL must join the federal compliance group by anyone with the CDL. Feds can require
Testing.
So if you look at page 51, it's written especially there.
Okay.
And it's there for non-DOT drivers and DOT drivers, so me and. So we got the.
Question. Going back to uniforms, how many uniforms do each one of our public works guys have?
They each have a nice jacket. And shirts.
10 shirts and 10 pants? Yes or no?
Extra.
Not positive on the pants, but
I'm
pretty,
sorry, what?
not positive on the pants.
Well, it would seem to me that they would have a clean uniform for each day,
Yeah,
and there shouldn't be any problems, yeah.
and we clean it. So Cintas cleans them.
I'm pretty sure it's.
But I think that it's, and I am assuming, because I haven't checked it out, that they're wearing them every day, their
Yeah.
uniforms.
So it is, it's probably 10 days, 2 work weeks.
Yeah.
I will have that language in there.
And they are wearing them, you said.
That will be the goal is for them to use.
Sure.
Obviously, they get money that in the morning, they have to go home and change quick, like I don't care. But it is our expectation that as much recently possible, you would wear your uniform.
And they're turning their uniforms in every week, so they're getting clean, so.
Nice. I think some of them water themselves, don't they, Jim?
They don't have to.
Oh,
Necessarily.
well, that's their personal
Correct. Right, yeah.
preference and whatever, yeah. Okay.
With the chemicals that they work with, I would probably have some professional cleanup.
They're sort of silly nuts because if I'm correct, these uniform services, you pull a button off, they put it on. You put a rip in a pair of pants, they give you a new pair. So why anybody would keep it is beyond me.
So is there any other details you wanted to go through at all, Gabe?
I don't think so.
I have a question on military service.
Yeah.
That hit my eye when I was skimming through there. And it hopefully doesn't happen, but it has happened. If somebody is working here and they have to leave because they're in the service and they have to go, do they have their job when they come back here?
Federal law.
Yeah,
That's a federal law.
we don't have a choice. Yes.
When did it become a federal law? It was here when
Oh,
you
exactly.
got drafted.
It's been a federal law for quite some time.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's good. Good to know. Okay,
And this is a living document. Some doesn't go right or things aren't working out. We can always change it. But this absolutely puts us in a much better direction.
And this is recommended approval by finance, I believe, right?
Yep.
So I will make a motion to adopt the 2025 personnel handbook effective immediately with exception to the
Well, noted in the.
it is noted in the personnel handbook, but relative to time off and PTO stuff that would take effect January 1 of 2026.
Second.
I got the motion seconded by Tony. Any further discussion? Mike, you want to redo this again? I know this.
Another year and a half?
Yeah, I did it right. Right, so motion by me, seconded by Tony to adopt the 2025 personnel handbook with the sick time and PTO adjustment to take effect January 1, 2026. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I oppose.
Passes 6-1. Okay, next, discuss and consider the facility architecture service agreements.
So this is not new. This was budgeted. So this is a recommendation from the Public Works Committee. Part of the, since probably the first meeting I came actually, was we were discussing what do we do with this building? What upgrades do we need to have? What bathrooms, all of that. And so it is my recommendation that we bring in the architectural firm, which is FGM Architects, to come in and do a space needs, but site plan and layout of Village Hall. So if you're gonna move ever, like you're probably, this is gonna be the move. You're probably not gonna wanna move again. And so, or if we fix this up, we're probably not moving from here. And so you guys need to know what does it make to this building to be for the next 30 years. Same with Public Works. Public Works is in major disrepair. It's how it is, it does not work. But the same question needs to be asked. If you're gonna stay in Public Works, what is it gonna cost? What does it mean to make that facility what we want it to be for the next 30 years? But then there's also a financial conversation. Since it's in a good location, do we want to move it? Because that's a better, maybe a development conversation later down the road. But the first question is there. But then the second question is, okay, it's gonna cost you, these are fake numbers, but it's gonna cost you $1.2 million to make this ADA accessible. Do you really want to do that? Okay. What's it gonna cost to build a new building? Maybe on our site, land that we've already owned, or a site that we don't have. That's what FGM is gonna do too. They're gonna provide a floor plan and cost for this building and for Public Works, and then 2 combined buildings. One on our property, maybe one on not. Who knows? We haven't decided what sites we're going. But that's what you're gonna get for $35,000, site plans, budgets, and all that, for you guys to know what decision you want to make. We have it in the capital budget right now. It was brand numbers, but 4.6 million. Say, hey, this is the new building. Obviously, I'm not expecting to use that, or maybe more than that. But at least when we did the budgeting, we knew this is the conversation you had to have. This forces us to make that decision. What do we want to do? And this is not, after this conversation, you don't have to make a decision, but at least gets you all the numbers to know and to be able to confidently say, may or may not.
I was just looking at this document at the library because I was, had to report some information to this SCLS about the new build, the library build, and there's a document at the library where somebody came in and did that. Did they not do that for the whole,
So
all of the building?
we have a study of what is in this building, the condition report. That's not a, this is the design and layout and cost to building. Or to make this building ADA. So like say,
No, I get you. I just am only bringing it up
There's
because
that.
I found that document and I just,
yep, there is a facility study that was done in 17 or 19 or whenever it was, but this is the condition of the building.
Yep.
This is the layout that you're going to do. This is the cost.
gotcha.
So they already have that studied, so they will use that to make out their basis. Again, this is budgeted in the capital budget, so.
So noticing on the agenda, do we have a copy of the agreement? Because what's embedded in the agenda that I'm opening is literally
Did you,
Right.
It's correct if you grab the agenda off the web page. What we sent on Friday was, it's also, if you scroll down through all the document, it is like.
Oh, it's in the, got it.
It's in the packet.
Packet.
A lot of links, guys, I'm sorry.
Fine, just,
Yeah, it's on page 116. You scroll down.
thank you. Or I can just take 116, you can take me right to it, I bet. Bingo. Okay, thank you.
My question is this, when the budget is set, we are going to follow the budget amount and we're not going to overbuild. Because it is a public building that the taxpayers pick up the cost and it doesn't generate tax dollars to help.
It'd be my expectation that when we build anything, it should be under budget or.
You're talking about change orders?
No, she's saying if we build a new building, it should be, keep it to budget.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
I
it's
thought you were talking about change orders, like during construction.
No.
or something.
carte blanche.
Yeah, that is my expectation. Again, this doesn't say we're absolutely building a new building. Doesn't say that at all. This just gives you the numbers to know what would a new building cost. What does it cost here? Because then Ellers will then use that to then capital plan and say, all right, it is going to cost you $5 million. Let's not do this for 4 years. But then we also have the architectural designs to say, what could we do in the phase study? So.
And when could we budget?
And when can we budget for
Years
it?
from now.
Exactly.
Do we want to buy a tunnel? Do we want to build a building? And we do a both.
What?
Squad car, and you have a new fire engine or new ambulance or something else coming up, like it's all part of the.
I understand.
All the pieces of the puzzle.
This has been budgeted for,
And it's under budget.
yeah, I think it's a necessary step in order to get the information of what we have, what we could have, what that would look like, and going towards that, I don't, just seems like we kind of talked about this, so I think this is just the next step in the process.
The 40 grand.
38.
We budget 40.
Dave, this is Gary. So
Yeah.
when I talked to you earlier, I mentioned that this item was not in, when you clicked on the link, it wasn't there. I didn't have time to go and look at the rest. What's the time frame for this? I have a real problem with approving this when I would have appreciated an email that said, hey, it's now corrected out there, or here's where you go find it. But so what is the time frame to get this report done?
We were going to start January. It was my expectation that we were going to start right away.
Okay, but are we looking 6 months? Are we looking a year? Are we,
The agreement would be 1 year from the date of commencement. So it'd have to be done in less than a year. And I told them I want it done for the budget process for this upcoming year.
26.
Yeah. And then if there is an agenda issue, I'll make sure it is emailed.
well, I'd like to read the documents that we're approving, and just finding out now and taking 20 seconds to try to read it is not very, we need to do it. I'm going to vote for it because they came to Public Works initially, but just my point, and I'm going to make the point later when we get into closed session about the document we received for that too.
So I don't see any dates to Gary's point, I don't see any dates is there any?
It's in my working draft of the agreement, so
Okay.
not the ones I sent.
Is there a problem with approving this in January versus approving it tonight?
Ability to get it done.
I mean, it's gonna delay it that much I'm just asking, I'm not.
Could approve it with whatever timeline you guys want. End up agreeing to it, great. And if not, it comes back in January. So if you guys want to approve it conditional upon,
Yeah, Gary, do you have, when would you like it to be done, Gary?
Well, it's sooner the better. I mean, we've got this, and there's 2 other studies that are being contemplated or looking to be approved on the agenda tonight. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be here a year from now and we haven't gotten anything. And I know as long as we put some language in there that it's done so that we can include it or use it for the budget process, which we start our budget earlier and earlier now, especially the capital side. So, that makes it June or July at the latest, probably. So
Everything in August, probably.
So finish by August 1 or August 31st?
July 31st.
July 31st? Okay.
I'd be fine with that. So
Okay.
the thing is, we're starting to get the capital before you guys and approved in September. So if we get it in August, there's nothing that's going to be in it for 26 anyway.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to get.
I'm just saying, so if we get it in August.
That helps to draft the motion that I'm about to make, so.
In this document, starting at section 3.1.2, the optional and additional fee structure that's set up. I kind of get .1 and .2 seem expensive, but anyway, .3, review of the South Central Library System Library Space Needs Program. I guess kind of questioning, how is that related?
It's not, so it's optional. So it's,
Right, I get that part, but
it's like if
how
we,
would it be related then?
if we wanted to extend and say we build onto the top of the current library. The site was put Village Hall at second floor of the current library.
All right. And then,
Yeah. But like, not that we would, but if we did want to do that, how would that impact the library's operation?
and then section 3.2, which basically deals with reimbursable expenses, which are, there's several of them laid out, and they're reimbursed at 110% of what they're actually expending. And they suggest to create an allowance of at least $500 for these. Like expenses of travel, living expenses related to the project. Is there anyone, are we expecting any of these expenses? Is what I'm asking, because, 110% versus actual just seems kind of odd. I've never really seen that.
Potentially postage and printing. So if you want a nice cover document, or if we have site plans or stuff like that.
Potentially pay a premium for it though. I don't know why we would pay a premium for it.
Exactly, but we could do it. That's if we're asking them, but, so no, I wouldn't.
And probably travel and living, and then specialty consultant. Granted, all these say owner's approval, or, they need to get our prior consent, but, if they need a specialty consultant to do some part of this project, that consultant is probably billing multiple hundreds of dollars an hour. And if we're paying 110% of that, what is the extra 10% actually getting us? Besides, they're telling the consultant to go out to this site and, collect some information, put their report together, which is all normal billable time, and then give them the report, which they'd bill us anyway. So I'm questioning why there's an extra 10%.
Because they can't.
Well, I don't agree with it.
I'll make
I don't either.
a motion to approve the facility architectural service agreement to be completed by July 31st with edits to adjust any reimbursable expenses, be they specialty or otherwise, to the cost of the expense, not upcharged to 110%.
Second.
Discussion. They might not like that, and they might not go for it, but then we might need to find a different contractor. That's my take.
I agree
what's-
100%.
And what's additional charges for room and board and all that?
That's all part of the reimbursable expenses I mentioned, so it's in the same category. Does that make sense, Gabe?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's reasonable.
Is that normal for a?
I don't know, but.
I've never heard of
Not-
anybody having to pay for room and board and
Well,
all that other stuff.
if they're coming here and they need to stay overnight and do something, that makes sense. Because they'd have costing.
I get other, like, we're talking about specific sites and they have to get like a geotech engineer or something and do borings and all that kind of stuff, and they don't do that. I don't know, but I'm just saying that might be another thing.
So
No, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't know why we would pay them more, 110% of what they charge.
So I'm
Like,
honestly, we were looking at the community center and we're like, okay, do we want to add aquatics to that? We literally had to fly somebody in and they had to spend the night because they were an aquatic expert. That's when that case, but that was their project. I don't expect that to be here, but that was an example of when that would have been used.
And that's fine, but again, I think the big deal here is the 110%. They're making a 10% profit on this on top of whatever else they're charging us, so.
yeah, I don't think anybody's opposed to it. So any further discussion on this at all? So we got a motion on the table, seconded by Mike, which is to adopt the facility architectural service agreement to be completed by July 31st and to adjust the reimbursable expenses so that they're only reimbursed at 100% of the cost, not 110% of the cost. And that also applies to any specialty consultant costs or other specialty fees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Next, discuss and consider master park planning services or service agreement.
So this was also in the budget for master park planning for Community Park and Sugar River Park. We have a lot of comments. Let's add this, let's add this, let's do this, let's do that. But if we don't have a plan for what those parks look like, one, I can't budget, but then two, I can't provide answers. So this allows us to then have that design. And a master park design is all of the layouts, the sidewalks, the lighting, the runoff, where the shelters are going, where the playground is, where parking is, all of that. So then if somebody says, hey, I want to add a baseball pitching mound here, no, we're in 2 years, we're going to be adding a firefighter. Sorry, this is the plan, this is community input. So again, this is budgeted. This is going to be provided by MSA's park designing team, Rain and Dan. Yeah, I think. Maybe the two ones running. They came to the Parks Committee, and Parks Committee is recommending approval of this one and next one.
And this I was at that meeting, and this includes taking data from previous public meetings that we had about use of community park, for example, that they would take some of that data into this as they're doing it. And I believe that there were also planned public sessions as part of the master planning process, if I'm not mistaken, Gabe, that would be incorporated into this. So it's certainly getting public feedback as part of the process to determine what the two master parks, I think, or the master plan was really Community Park and Sugar River Park, if I'm not mistaken, were the two big ones, but it's kind of the whole. Go ahead, Judy.
Wasn't it a year ago that we had the master parks plan?
We never did a master parks plan.
Did the, I think
It was
that,
a comprehensive
Comprehensive recreation plan.
This says you should do this,
Right.
but it doesn't say this is where this is going, how is it going to look? And then a master park plan, like what the FGM will allow us to do, is then budget. Say, this is what this park is going to be in 10 years. But again, we can't afford $2 million in projects right now. But in 10 years, we can. So this is, we're going to work on this park here, then this, then this, then this.
So we did last time was a comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, and we did prioritization. And then the board at the time did an evaluation of like prioritizing things cost wise, et cetera. This is literally getting down to the minutia of what goes where in community park, for example. Like, what do we want? A shelter here? Do we want a shelter there? Do we want the baseball diamond here? Are we going to work on drainage for the baseball diamond? Are we going to put a bandstand in? Are we going to do something with the shelter, update the warming house, some of that sort of stuff, all of those things.
All those people that were here under the park up on the west side,
Right.
that hasn't been included in this talk.
that's the
That's the next item.
next item agenda, so it's just,
I'm not,
she's talking, I think, about the west side park.
I know she's talking about the West Side Parks, and we did that with the TID money. I guess I'm not understanding what you're,
Well, if you're doing this with community park in Sugar River,
right?
okay, if we're gonna do a master park planning service agreement,
Correct.
that should be all our parks.
No.
It's a master park plan is a park. It's the master plan to that park. It's the layout where the shoulder's going to go here. It's going to go here. That's what a master park plan does. And it's going to do it for the community park and Sugar River.
The next agreement is actually for the two parks on the west side. They're not there's not, let's say that there's not a need to do a master plan for that, but the smaller park that we're putting in on the west side, it doesn't require the same level of scrutiny as this does, because we can't put in 20 different things in half an acre of land. So there's like, it doesn't make sense for us to spend a fortune doing that. The other park is almost an acre, or it actually is over an acre. That one will be a little bit more involved, which is why it's a little bit more expensive, but that is part of the next agreement that we're going to be talking about tonight. But it wouldn't be part of the master plan that this covers, because this is specifically for Sugar River Park and Community Park.
I'm gonna make a motion that we enter into the professional services agreement with MSA for the Community Park and Sugar River Park master plans in an amount not to exceed $34,650 plus reimbursables.
Second.
A motion by Gary, seconded by Mike. And again, I think the completion date is on here is June 20th, I think is what's estimated, so.
Yep.
That's aligned with that. So any further discussion? Comments from the public? So we got a motion by Gary, seconded by Mike to enter into the services agreement with MSA for the master park plan for Community Park and Sugar River Park master plans not to exceed $34,650. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. So next is discuss and consider park development service agreement.
So, same thing, but now the two parks on the west side, so this would cover the cost for not for the construction, but for the engineering, the planning, the design, all of that for the two new parks. So one is on but Carolina and James Street, right across from where our all in one lump cost. That's what it costs for them to design and get the park ready to go with the public meetings, going through the parks committee, all that.
This coming out of TIF?
It is coming out of right now it's coming out of the capital budget. The board, when we approved it, we didn't know where the funds were we wanted to pull it from. So potentially, it also could potentially come out of the park impact fee fund that we have, the park development fund. The board just hasn't made the decision where they want to pull it, but it is budgeted. So if you approve it now and we never make a decision, it's going to be GO debt. If you don't, if you want to pull it somewhere else, we can make that conversation too.
Totally qualifies.
Yeah. And we do think it could qualify as a TID expense too.
That answer your question, Judy? You have a comment, question?
Isn't that supposed to be?
Isn't what's? Yeah, I think it would qualify for TID. Yeah, so, yes. It would qualify.
Just kind of there.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah, the TID wasn't amended until about a month after the capital budget was adopted. At the time we did the capital budget, this was in it. We didn't know the TID would actually be amended. So that's why right now it's budgeted out of capital, but it is, it would be, a qualifying expense or whatever for the TID under the projects that were amended into the TID.
I mean, if kid has money to do this, why would we wanna?
I agree.
Question, Judy, I didn't hear the last part of it.
I said, why would we wanna borrow money to do the parks up there when we get it out of TID?
I agree with you.
I don't disagree.
So do we have to do anything to switch from the capital budget to the TID?
Nope, not now. As we go through the financing process and look at what we actually spent throughout the year and talk with Brian on what makes the most sense, that's when we would.
It would be a budget amendment.
Like we wouldn't borrow for it anyway, because we've got the capital, we've got the park improvement fund that would suit for this as well, right? So the money could come from there. If we weren't gonna take it out to TID, but I don't disagree. We take it out of TID first would make the most sense.
Yeah, because the last time we used the park improvement fund, all the money got used, and then we had a board member who just went ape shit because there was no money left, and we had to put it back. Before your time.
Okay, well, we've got money in there to be used to improve parks, so. Anyway.
So again, I'll make a motion that we enter into an agreement with the professional services agreement with MSA for the new parks near James Street and Carolina Street, park design and bidding not to exceed $45,110 with funding to be determined.
Seconded by Shelley. Okay, so we got a motion by Gary, seconded by Shelley to approve the park development services agreement with MSA not to exceed $45,110. Any further discussion?
Question, why? Well, when I was looking at this and reading it, why is it more expensive to have an agreement for these two smaller parks versus the big community and Sugar River Park? Why is MSA charging us $10,000 more?
So on the first two is just basically a master plan. So a lot of the time is the public involvement part of it, like, you know, what does everybody want to see where and go through some of that iterative processes of that.
Okay,
This has got less of the public involvement being going through and making actual design plans. So they'll be, you know, coming to you guys with like, you know, they're gonna specify what shelter is gonna be there and design the concrete footings and whatever is needed for those things. So there's a lot more detail in these small ones because you're actually putting it out for contractors and the specifications. The other, it's a little more high level, but there's a lot, obviously it's bigger parks, so there's more amenities that are possible. I'm trying to fit them around, so it's kind of doing different things, if you want to call it that way. That makes any sense?
did you say?
What's that?
How much did you say?
How much?
45,000.
This one was 45,
And this one's 34.
right?
Well, and also the timing for this, because I did ask that question, I think at Parks, is that the other one is going to start involving the public early on in the process. This also requires that, but I suspect that we'll probably do the smaller park first to get that functional and done. That's not going to require a ton of design, but that larger park that's about an acre, we're likely going to piggyback on some of the process that exists for the master plan. At least that would be kind of the concept, because I don't think that that park is going to get built or worked on until later in the year, right? So we'll basically kind of mimic what MSA is doing, maybe do our own meetings for that sort of thing, but facilitate that to basically come up with what that plan would look like. That's at least the concept. That's the way I was thinking about it. If that helps, you know. So we've got a motion by Gary, seconded by Shelley. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. So next is discuss, consider resolution 2024-33 Parks and Special Event Fee Schedule.
We are in what I would consider the off-season for parks and special events. Obviously, we don't get a lot of requests for shelters in the winter. So it's a good time to review. And we have actually been spending most this year during our minutia free time reviewing the applications, which are currently going through parks, and the fee schedule for parks and special events. And there's 3 goals that we kind of wanted to accomplish by updating the fee schedule. The first one, and the biggest one, I think, for us in the clerk's office would be simplification. Our current fee schedule is cumbersome. It's got 5 different levels on 3 different things, and there's a lot of little minutia. What this does is simplify it down to a day or month or season, and then for the day, just into 2 categories. Either you're a resident or your group is in Belleville, or you're a non-resident, your group is in, I don't know, Mass or whatever. So it really simplifies it down. The second thing, we're moving away from picking up deposits. Our deposit, as I have never, ever once in the 2 years I've worked here, actually cashed a deposit check for any reason. We always take an extra check from them for $100 or $250. We hold it, and then we waste the stamp mailing it back to them. It's facetious. So we'd like to remove the deposits off there. Instead, we're moving to basically what we're doing in a lot of with our planning commission things, which is a cost reimbursement agreement. So for bigger events, special events, they would just be being invoiced after the fact. They'd be aware of it. The cost agreements in the applications for excessive police time or whatever, that kind of thing. And if they'd requested that we purchase them a dumpster, that kind of stuff. The third one is we are going away from the fee waiver. I think we're all tired of the fee waivers. We're tired of bringing them to you guys. You guys are tired of listening to them. They don't really solve the problem. The problem is regardless of who's on the field or who's in the in the park, we're gonna have to pay for it to clean it up or to get it ready or anything or after the fact. So situations aside, you know, these are set prices. We tried to make them fair and I don't want to say balanced isn't the right word, but fair in a way that we're not like excessively going, you're going to pay nothing to paying thousands of dollars. We're just saying, hey, we need you to chip in. So most of the fee waiver, like I said, I don't think it's worth anybody's time to try and deal with that. So that's the three simplifications or the three justifications for changing the fee schedule. We'd like to do it now simply because we can start enacting it February 1st. That's right before most. We get almost all of we have a couple of applications in already for next year, but otherwise everybody else would be set to the new applications and the new fee schedule starting February. It's like I said, it's pretty straightforward. We did talk about this at F&G and it was approved to take to you guys. So if you have any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer that.
Any questions from anyone?
I have one. When I read it over, I don't have it in front of me now. But what was it called? The 10 mile?
10 mile?
Yeah, it seems like theirs is less than any.
So we did adjust from what we brought to F&G to, oh goodness, I didn't print it out. We did adjust the, at F&G, the non-residential fees for like a shelter was set at 55. We raised it to 60, in which case at this point now, if you look at that cost comparison that's attached to the village board agenda, the 10 junk is actually paying like $10 more than they were last year. So it's still very comparable to what they had last year. There's nobody at this point, either the prices are like right on what they were paying last year, or there's just a little bit of increase. There's obviously anyone that paid nothing last year would have to see a lot.
If you're asking why are they paying less than other organizations, it's because they're not using the baseball fields in the same fashion. The baseball fields are the part that, I shouldn't say that, but like, if you look at like community picnic is a lot more expensive because it's multiple days and shelters, whole parks and whole fields, that sort of thing. And I think the others are, you know, the youth baseball season is the whole season, right? So that adds up a lot more for that. Yeah, we did up because I remember that was, I commented on that because it's like we were giving them a bigger discount and I wanted to keep their fees fairly consistent with what they had. Which I think like within $10 what they paid last year, which I don't think is burdensome to them. Hopefully they don't see it the same, they don't see it any different.
We tried not to, we're not trying to push people away from using the fields. We're still, even at the new fee schedule prices, the outside of maybe like a township or somewhere else, you're still, for the amenities we have, the cheapest around. You couldn't go to Verona for these prices. You can't go to New Glarus for these prices. No, there's a lot of costs, especially related to public works in maintaining the parks, even for like when the youth soccer is at the fields, they contribute a lot of trash that has to then be picked up more often because there's so much trash there. And these fees don't cover all of our costs, but they do cover it slightly.
So I will make a motion to approve Village of Belleville Resolution 2024-33 to adopt the Parks Special Event Fee Schedule to be effective February 1 of 2025, I think is what's in.
I'll second that.
So motion by me, seconded by Maxine. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And Gary, I'm assuming you're abstaining?
I'm opposed, but I'm in favor of the motion, so yeah. So I'm a yes.
Abstaining.
I would abstain.
That just confused me all the way around.
So I have a question. I couldn't get unmuted and
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
so can you explain? So I'm looking at the page that talks about and gives a comparison as to what the different groups are going to pay for fees here. Can you explain the reimbursement agreement again? So that's going to be part of the.
Yeah.
So instead of the $100 deposit, there's going to be a $250 reimbursement agreement. And
Well,
exactly
so
what is that?
The reimbursement agreement is not, there's no fee on the head of it. So instead of giving us that check for $250 and then we mail that check back to you after the event, we're just saying, for instance, I know you guys had us rent, I think, was it dumpsters or toilets or something like that? You're just
Well,
paying
no.
for those. If your police needs to charge for police time, you would be invoiced for that kind of thing in the reimbursement agreement. The reimbursement agreement is attached to the park applications and special event applications, which are not being approved tonight because they haven't made it through parks yet. But it's it's pretty much the same language of the reimbursement agreement that we give to a developer instead of the deposits when they put in a zoning application or a conditional use permit. And instead of giving us a $500 deposit, we're saying, we paid $200 in postage, you owe us that. So it's an at cost kind of reimbursement agreement.
Okay. So I'm just looking here. So do we talk about, so we have not come up with a fee schedule yet for what additional, because it really affects all the examples that you gave could have additional public works or could have additional police.
Right, so anything, ideally, any special event that came to us and requested those additional things, we would be, forthcoming with those, how much that would cost us and what we would be charging them before as we were putting that through the department head approval process. So they would be aware of any fees that we would ask them to be reimbursing. But there's not like a fee schedule for that necessarily, because it could vary based on the needs of any special event.
Well, and again, it's not included in here, so maybe it's not the discussion to have tonight, but the fees are doable, what you've got in here, I think. And and again, I'll put my community club hat on. Ours is doubling from what it normally is, which I guess I'm okay with that. But if somebody, whoever is going to make that decision, is going to decide that Ken Junk Mile needs 5 additional officers at $50 an hour, for whatever, I think those are some costs that need to be at least somewhat predetermined and in some kind of schedule, because those costs might be prohibitive down the road for somebody. So
It's a discussion we've had at the department level way back over the summer when Bill was here and kind of discussing on, like what the expectations for police would charge for that kind of thing. That's kind of been tabled due to not having a police chief at the moment, based on like wages and all this kind of other things. So like I said, I'm not trying to be manipulative with this fee schedule or high costs. We would definitely, before we take any special event to the board, be forthcoming about what the cost for that event organizer would be that we would expect the reimbursement for.
It'd be part of the application process, I think, Gary, is the point, right?
Yeah.
It's not there yet because we haven't talked about it at parks yet, but that's sort of the next step. And
right, this is just your very basic fee schedule that's definitely set
for the facilities.
For the facilities, yes.
So in the rules and regulations, and again, I'll pick on somebody other than one of the events that were on the list. So youth soccer, okay? And I know I'll piss somebody off by bringing this up, but so youth soccer, is there gonna be, or youth baseball or whatever the sport is, I don't care, youth football, they're gonna be charged extra for now the trash pickup, which gets done every day anyways by Public Works, or is that gonna be included in the fee?
Well, Jim's smiling at me. We discussed having an extra fee for trash pickup and decided not to include that in this year's fee schedule. Mostly because I don't want to sticker shock anybody, but no, we're not going to necessarily be charging youth sports for extra trash pickup, but they are charging them to use the fields this year, which for everybody but youth baseball, which is why I use youth baseball as the example in this scenario, because they're the only ones that did pay fees last year. Everybody else got a fee waiver. So for all those other ones, they're going from paying nothing this year to paying something.
Okay.
So let's say my goal is not to nickel and dime or to have hidden costs. The goal is to be very transparent, but to try and recoup obvious something, sure.
Okay, well, again, and I'm thinking smaller events too, where, somebody's trying to, and again, we've had this discussion before and I know why we're doing this, but if somebody's out, trying to fundraise for something and all their profit's going to be taken away because of the fees we're charging, they will probably go, they might go to Exeter or someplace like that. But again, that's when I see more information on that, I'll say more at that point, I guess. So.
So was your vote still yes, or were you abstaining?
Mine's a yes.
Okay.
Vote. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure. Appreciate it, Gary.
Okay. 7-0, that passes. Okay, next, discuss and consider water tower roof vent repair.
So as part of our, we had a water study done. And it was actually called sanitary survey done, which makes no sense because it's water. Your problem. But part of their comment was there was a vent on top of a water tower that needed repair. And to do that, it was what?
6,500.
6,500. We have it budgeted to make the water tower in the capital budget. It is under budget already. So this would just be put onto their work that they're doing in the springtime. So.
In the sanitary survey that was done, it wasn't a have to do, like to meet code. It was a recommendation. So we don't know how long that's going to be until it is required. And since we're already under contract to paint it, it just seemed like we would get a cost at least and see what the cost was. And Gabe said it still fell within budget. So that was the reason for adding this on.
So I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Gary. Go for it, Gary.
I'll make a motion that we enter into or approve the proposal from Lane Tank Company for $6,500 to repair the roof vent, the water tower roof vent.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gary, seconded by Tony to approve the water tower roof vent repair with Lane Tank Company in the amount of $6,500. Any further discussion?
Did we get a second bid on that? Because it seems like there's an awful lot of money.
Well, this is the company that's doing other stuff with it already, so
I realize that, but would we be wise to get another bid on
I
that?
think we had other bids before and
And
it
yes,
was,
the bids on the original painting and everything. There was a little bit. This is kind of an addition after the fact. I can't imagine it'd be necessarily any cheaper working with a second contractor to do just this piece. Trying to fit that all in, the other ones.
It just seems like an awful lot of money for the vent. I mean, I thought the paint.
It's up on the top of the water tower, so that's the whole, I mean,
Pardon?
it's up on top of the water tower. It's a pretty large vent up there. I don't know huge amounts about water tower things either. I've just seen pictures of it. I've never been up there, so. But it sounds like they've been doing quite a few of these as well, or whatever, based on talking with them quick like to get a cost.
install an 18-inch vacuum release roof vent. The vent will be bolted to the existing vent mount collar using stainless steel bolts and gasket material as per attached drawing. So, and they've got to dispose of the one that's up there too, so. transporting it up there, getting it down, safety, and all that sort of stuff. Any further questions or discussion? So we've got a motion by Gary, seconded by Tony to approve the vent repair for $6,500 with the contractor that's already working on the tower. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to jump the gun there.
That's okay. Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. So next is discuss and consider the CSM application for 41 Frederick Street.
Okay, this is just a couple blocks away here. Where the Woods of Belleville used to be. This went through Plan Commission last Wednesday. Basically, we're just taking the lot and there's the little building in the back and separating it into two lots. He's got a buyer for the front lot that doesn't, and he would like to keep that back where the shed, thank you, is. So a certified survey map just tells the county register of deeds that this is now what these two lots look like instead of being that one lot. Has to go through Plan Commission. Plan Commission approved it with some contingencies, which I sent you the new map today. I think, Charles, did you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I had one tiny little
Okay, cool.
edit
Yeah.
comment that I responded to him on, but it was
Okay.
acreage. It was just a rounding thing on some numbers.
Yeah.
So.
So there's, that's kind of where we're at with it. So, would be, y'all's approval if you're okay with.
You just gotta stick to landing.
I get it, I'm really falling, like, almost like it's a long time. Approval of the CMA, CSM is what we're looking for right here. Rick is here tonight. He can answer.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just to separate the parcels. Basically, it does result in a fairly small parcel in the back, which will have a standalone building that has electrical running to it, but does not have water or sewer to it. So that was one of the topics of conversation. But again, I don't know that that's part of the CSM. Part of the conversation is kind of where the Plan Commission landed, which is why we basically approved it and sent it to the board.
It does fit the zoning requirements then for the business downtown EG, I think it's where it's at.
Right.
Because there's no lot size restrictions or anything down here, that's zoning. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
The only difference is when it comes down to use. But right now, we treat it just as a cold storage building.
Honey,
What about the little house? Doesn't that belong there too?
the little house.
The house next to it.
It's on a separate.
It's on separate.
Oh.
Yeah, you're talking about the house to the west, the trailer that's to the west. Is that what you're talking about, honey?
Oh, okay.
That's already a separate.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the CSM application for 41 Frederick Street. Is there any contingencies that we need to put on that?
I had one little typo thing that I just to add.
Yeah, just for the, okay.
Yeah, I don't
With the, yeah, with the minor adjustment presented by MSA.
Second.
Any further discussion? Motion by me, seconded by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That passes. Thank you. Okay, so reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Community development, Mike, anything?
Get a facade grant
Yeah, they're doing a really good job on
for
that.
Dan Burnley, reimbursement, 7,500 to the brick wash that he did. And then the CDA vibrant spaces grant that you guys approved during the consent agenda. Reviewed by the WBC.
Awesome. Parks, Recreation and Forestry, we talked about the park stuff that we talked about tonight. I don't think there's anything else down there. Economic Development and Tourism. We're talking about doing a study that we're kind of next steps on that, I think.
Marketplace analysis.
Yeah.
There's a couple grants we're working on.
Yeah. Yep. Relative to that. Arts and culture.
Gonna setting up a fundraiser with the community for raising a small amount of money for the mural upkeep.
Cool. Guy, what are you guys aiming for?
$1,000.
Finance and governance.
We just covered everything in that.
Yeah, we
to this meeting.
Yeah, we did. Personnel manual, gonna cover that.
Yep.
Planning commission, we just talked about. Anything else on planning commission that we had?
On police committee, we're going to
We
deal
talk
with the
about
rest
that.
of it
Yep.
tonight.
Sounds good. Any news and announcements? Still time to get your nomination papers in.
Yep, January 7th.
We did switch over the new .gov or the domain.
Website.
So it's not website, but domain. So
Okay.
Belleville WI.gov. Email addresses went pretty much off without a hitch, so that's fantastic. You're gonna change to. And then the new website will have Belleville WI.gov. This one won't. They'll switch over.
Upcoming community events.
Marion Bright's still going on.
Yep.
It's the end of the year. It looks fabulous, so. Definitely can.
Any future agenda items?
The only one that I have right now is MSA's annual agreement that we have to do every year. January, but that's all I got.
The ordinance that we approved at plan commit, or that went through public hearing at plan commission, will have to be brought in January.
Okay. So, do you want to do these together or separate? Something.
Do them together.
Okay. Okay. So. Closed session. So the Village of Belleville Village Board will enter into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subsection E for the purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The village board may reconvene into open session and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session, and that is for establishing a negotiating position regarding the village depot property. And second, the Village of Belleville Village Board will enter into a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 subsection 1 subsection C for the purposes of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The village board may reconvene into open session to take action on the subject matter discussion in closed session, and this is discuss and consider appointing an interim police chief. Have anyone who would like to make a motion?
Make a motion to enter into closed session.
So, motion by Tony, seconded by Maxine. And assuming Connie, you would like to know if we're coming back out into open session, are
Are
we
you
gonna
doing in there? You staying out here?
probably stay out here?
Yeah.
Just gotta bring Gary wherever we're going, so
Yeah,
we'll stay here.
probably stay here.
Okay, I'm gonna get my van to park out front.
Okay, so motion by Tony, seconded by Maxine, and we gotta do roll call.
Trustee Bayman,
Yes.
trustee Eichelkraut. Yes. Trustee Kazmar,
Yes.
trustee Ward,
Yes.
trustee Ziegler,
Yes.
trustee Zervis.
Yeah.
President Larson.
Yes,
We are in closed session.
at 8:30 PM.